Welcome to Python with Andrew. And in this video, we're going to check in on the match case statement. And we'll talk about this because this is a feature that people have been asking for from Python for a long, long time. Most other languages have had this facility to effectively check an expression and then choose depending on the answer. And Python didn't for a long time, but recently it has been added. So let's delve in and explore why do we need this and what's a good example of this being used. Let's jump over to our trusty Visual Studio Code and see what we would be using this for. Now, typically, if we had a situation where we wanted to check a variable and depending on the answer, branch off into different areas. So let's say an example might be we're asking it for a command from the user, and depending on their command, we're going to do different functions all over the place. So I'm going to make it easy, and I'm just going to say the answer is equal to open, whatever that happens to mean. Now, we could have got that answer by asking the user, or we could have got the answer from, we had a graphical user interface, clicking on the open button or file open. In this particular case, I'm just going to make it very, very easy. So typically, if we wanted to branch off, and if it was only two answers, open and close, we would say if answer equals open, then in this case, I'm just going to say open file, right? And that's my, if you like, calling a function or doing lots of activity. Else print do nothing. Okay. And so that's how we typically do it. And if I ran this, it would look as you'd expect. Oops. Save that. Run it again. Yeah, open the file. Nothing fancy about that. And if I changed it from open to close, because we don't have that command in there, it would say do nothing. So that would be the simple case of either opening or do nothing. If, on the other hand, we've learned this already, if we had multiple options, we'd put it elif answer equals close, and I'm going to use lowercase just to make it easy. Print close the file. And maybe I'm going to do another one. Elif answer equals end, then print end. Okay, so that's how we would typically do it, with a series of if, elif, and then if we wanted to do something at the end, we would have else. And if I ran this, say close the file this time, if I change this command to be end, it would do that and say end. If I change it to junk, some other answer, it would do nothing. So nothing surprising about that. We've talked about if and elif before, and that's pretty standard. There's no problem with doing that at all. And if we had 10 options, we'd just keep going. Not a problem at all. Most other languages have a different syntax to do that, and it's often called a case statement or a switch statement. It's called different sorts of things, a match statement, to allow us to do multiple. The only difference is with this one, every time we do this if and elif, we have to calculate and check. So one could argue that there's a bit of extra work. These are not very complex, but one could argue that it's a bit of extra work. Anyway, Python has decided we're late to the party, but we're going to have what's called a match statement. And the match statement will take the answer or any expression, and depending on the answer, it's going to let's see what's case open. Let me print, take that across down there, print open the file. Formatting right. Case, there's no column there, the column at the end. Okay, so let's hope that I've got that one right. That would be the simplest situation where match says, let's evaluate the answer, and depending on what the answer is, we'll do the statement underneath it. So if I copied that down a couple of times, and case close the file, and case end, and you can see now I only copied the 3 there, and this should do the same. Well, let me take the word junk, let me put open in there. This should do the same for both cases. It should open the file, and the other one should be open file. So that looks very, very similar. I think the bottom one looks a bit cleaner than the top one, and certainly a lot more readable. But people would argue that, and that's probably because they've had to do it this way all along, and that's fine. It's just another way of doing it. So if we had the word junk there, in the top one, we've got an else condition. The bottom one we don't, right? So it'll do nothing from the top one, or print do nothing. The bottom one, it just falls through. So none of these get done. So that's another good feature. If we don't want to do anything, we would just go to the end there. If we want a catch-all, which is sort of like anything else, we do underscore colon and then say do nothing. Now, I have no idea why Python decided to do that. I would have personally just stuck the else keyword in there myself, or otherwise, or some other keyword, but this underscore makes it a little bit less readable. But now if we have junk in there, we should get do nothing twice, which is what we do. Right, so that's a different and a newer way of, if you like, checking a variable, depending on the variety of values, doing different things. This is really, really useful when we want to branch out for different files, different commands, like I've sort of done there, or it might be different commands in a game, where you've got the option of saying go north or go south or go west or pick up the hammer. We can have this one big match statement that allows us to put the commands in and branch off and do different functions depending on the match there. So it's a nice clean way of, if you like, taking an expression and based on the answer, going through and deciding. Now, with Python, you can do a few more complex things here. It doesn't just have to be a variable and a string. It could be a variable and a number. So I could have put, let me copy this down here. Oops, didn't copy very well, but let me try and fix it up. I'm going to call it answer 1, and I could have done 1, 2, 3, and if I set answer 1, three, I'd get the last, the end case there. So I could have, you're asking the user, click a button, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So there's all sorts of different things that we could do there. They're a bit more complex and quite nicely done with a match statement. So let me know what you think in the comments, whether you understand the difference between the two, or whether you say, look, I prefer the top one, it's cleaner, or maybe you say, look, I do like this match statement and I'll probably use it again myself. It'd be good to get your feedback and hear what you think. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.